It's been a day though too. I'm probably, and I feel like because we're here, I'm gonna have to talk loud, so sorry. All right, so a couple of things. First off, I want to show you your video. However, it's like actually on the camera, so I can't do that right now. So
Okay.
A follow-up would be for us to actually like watch that video together, so you can kind of like see some of the cool things that I saw you doing like very naturally. But I want to start off saying that I noticed your action step that we set last week of having like 4 or 5 questions in like a small group setting. I saw that you met that goal, and I felt like the way that you met that was by getting started right away. Like you had kids passing materials out, and you were like, all right, we're going. Like wasting no time there. And then also, I noticed you inputting more of a countdown for like, hey, we're moving on, materials are down. And I just felt that you were able to meet the goal of getting to at least 4 problems in that short period of time. How do you think that, or what made you successful?
I think having it up on the PowerPoint was helpful because then I didn't have to waste time like erasing my board and writing another problem. And then, so having that up, and so like they could see it, and that meant that I could like kind of walk around while it was still up, so they weren't like, wait, what does your board say? And I'm like holding it up. So I think having it up on the board was helpful, and that's something I do intend to keep doing. And I did feel like I was talking a lot, but I realized like the majority of what I was saying was like, show me your board in 2, 1, done. Okay, you have 10 seconds, 9. It was mostly just numbers, me counting down. But I think it helped them realize like, oh, I can't just sit and wait. Like I need an answer.
Yeah. And how did the pacing feel?
It felt a lot better. I'd done some of the review the day before, but I like hadn't gotten to a ton, and partially because I was like, they were writing like A, parentheses, hundredths place, which like when you're 8 takes a little while. So that's why I was like, you are writing an A, a B, or a C. That's it. And that helped I think keep things moving.
Just like clear instructions as well.
Yeah. Of like exactly what should be on the whiteboard, and I don't know if anyone in that group was drawing other lines or writing, but I like took the board and marker. I was like, show me on your chest or in it back, and they were like, oh, I actually have to do that now. So that was good.
It felt, I like from last week to this week, just like a really big difference in like momentum.
Yeah.
And I know like even starting the lesson, there was a lot going on, and you just like shifted gears and you were ready to go in a way that was like really cool to see, like wasting no time. It felt really good. So we're actually going to shift focus a little bit. Today we're going to actually talk about ways to increase cognitive engagement, specifically by like varying the types of questions that you're asking. And so I noticed today specifically when you were talking about the hundreds, tens, and ones that you were calling on students that were raising their hands. And so today we're really going to be talking about how to include at least one time paired share to increase the amount of student rigor and getting them to really explain their thinking. And so I guess before we even get started, what was the objective of that part of the lesson? So specifically when you were at the very beginning, when you were kind of going over how do you know a number is in the tens place?
Right. So we had done a little bit of the review the day before, in which I realized that, and that being the high group, I was kind of expecting they would just like breeze through it and we would get to the end and building numbers. And there were a couple students, one in particular, who had no grasp of hundreds, tens, ones place. Like, was guessing wildly and coming up with like the most ridiculous reasonings. So I realized that some of them actually like didn't have it, and I was like, oh, we should actually like talk about this more. So the day before, it had just been like practice problems, in which I realized that there was there were misconceptions. So I thought about how to just like quickly review it, and I realized we hadn't talked about like how do you know that. It probably in hindsight like, oh, that would have been a great place for a time to pair share.
Yeah.
And so there were one student, Raven, in the back is the one, and then there were a handful of others who were like a couple times not getting it right. She had like nothing, which is why I called on her like more than almost anyone else. But the point of that was for them to not just like be able to regurgitate what's in the tens, hundreds, or ones place, but be able to say like, and I know because it's here, and that means it's this.
Awesome. I feel like you like named that beautifully. I think that, you know, it sounds like you knew who had the misconceptions, which is good. I think one way to clarify misconceptions in a way that's safe is to include those time period shares. So while I think like you weren't wrong for doing what you did, I just felt like the lesson could have benefited from having the kids be able to talk a little bit more, and then you like looping in, could somebody have, could they have been able to help Raven get there without like your voice? And I know you were saying it again and again, and I was thinking like, I wonder if like a student would shed light on this in a way that's like slightly different.
A good point.
And so what I thought we could do is I kind of modeled one. It's not perfect, but
Jaden Moran, if you're in the building,
kind of what I
please
had
report
in
to the
mind.
office. Jaden Moran, if you're here, please report to the office.
So, and I also have one of these for you. So, but this is what I was thinking, something along these lines. So I think like starting, because you want the question to be meaty enough, so it would be something like this. Scholars, I want you to silently think right now. Your question is, what number is in the tens place, and how do you know? How do you know that number is in the tens place? Again, your question is, what number is in the tens place? How do you know? Let me give you some think time. You're gonna have 30 seconds to talk before you switch who's talking. The person who is sitting closest to the window, you're gonna go first. Remember that the question is, what is the number in the tens place? How do you know? Go. And I would have them go, and I would give them a gambit after they finished. I think right now they're not good at the completing the gambit, but they are like they like to repeat like what you say. So having them say like I like thinking.
Like coming up with it on their own? Yeah, it's a step that Susie and I are not great at remembering all the time. So I could definitely see that they like wouldn't have that done because we haven't really taught them to do that.
But I do think your students are ready to support each other in this kind of way.
And they love this part when we do remember it.
And then I would say like at that point, listening in on like definitely catching the Ravens, and then also like knowing like your backhand kid, like who's probably going to be able to explain this, and like checking in with that person to see also.
Yeah.
So what was the difference between asking the question like this or asking it by having hands raised?
This would definitely engage, I mean, at some point would engage everyone in a way that like when I was asking it was maybe 3 people were getting the chance to answer, but it was 3 separate questions. And I think you're right, like I did explain it to Raven in as many different ways as I could think about, and she wasn't, I think she grasped it today. We'll see if it's there tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I think if a student did explain it, it might be in like that kid-friendly language that I just don't have because I'm not a kid.
Well, you're not a kid.
Yeah.
So I think what we're going to do now, so your action step, you want to write this down?
Yeah.
So your action step, moving into next week, I'm really excited about this one though, because I think like, I don't know, kids love time period share, and I think that your groups are so ready.
Yeah.
So your action step today is going to be to work on increasing cognitive engagement by including at least one time period share in a lesson. And I'm thinking like, let's stick with one because I know the time is really short.
Yeah.
And I still want you to, get to your 4 to 5 questions. And then as a quick hit, I was thinking, and it's the same one as last week, just like anytime you see, you had some kids today that were just giving shine, and you did highlight it in my notes. I even wrote like you definitely positively narrated when one of your students in the back row was giving shine to somebody in the front row, and then as soon as you narrated, 2 more students. And so just like that positivity really like stuck out to me, and I would say like bring it out even more, especially like tracking the person who's speaking. I think that's a quick hit for you. One thing that we do in here is I'll say all eyes on so-and-so, and then they'll say all eyes on, and then their eyes go to that person. So that would be a quick hit.
Above $1.
Okay. So in order to plan the time paired share, what are some of the things that you think you're going to have like ready to go ahead of time?
I think I'm going to do slides with amounts of money on it.
Okay.
So they're going to have that. Then that would let them draw on their board while having the reference up. So they'll have slides, they'll have their board. I'm thinking like, draw this amount of money. If you're in this row, you can't use dimes. If you're in this row, you can't use nickels. And then drawing and explaining what you used instead.
I like that.
So they would have their board then like with whatever they've done drawn out, and they would turn to their partner. I'm doing the thing where they're on the blue and the orange rows, and that way they can turn around to face their partner instead of doing,
Side by side.
Side by
so
side.
they can't see each other.
so they can't see each
Smart.
other, and so that they do, everything they do is side by side, so they go and they sit next to the person they wanna talk to. So then when I say you have to turn around, they're like, so that makes them talk to other people.
Cool. So you already have what it sounds like to me. So you know what the material is. You're gonna plan on having the money amounts displayed on the board as a reference, and then it sounds like they already know who their partners are for the most part. So you seem pretty set to go. I want you to try, and I have been, like I said, I've been using these in here to get me started. So I brought you a couple, but we can use this one as a reference too. So thinking of, and this is kind of cool because this is actually almost a different Kagan thing where they write and then they share.